from My Dreaming Soap. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for dropping by. Now today we're going to make a sort of summery soap. It's going to be a plant pot with all lots of flowers coming out of it. So what I'm doing is I don't have a plant pot embed, but what I sell in the I Dreaming Soap shop is a honey pot, and that works just as well for a plant pot or a honey pot or whatever sort of pot you may want. And I do sell two sizes. This is the large one that I'm going to be using today. So the first thing I'm going to do today is make my embed for my plant pot. So I've got all of my oils here. Now, because this is just going to be a plant pot, I'm going to do it all one colour. When I make it as a honey pot, I do it in layers so that it's got a sort of like a yellow stripe in the middle, but I don't want that for a plant pot. So I'm just going to make this all one colour, and I'm using black gold from Mica Mama. And because I just want all the one colour, I'm just going to add that mica directly to my oils. And then that'll just get blended in nicely with the lye solution as I make that into the soap. For my fragrance, I'm using good old black raspberry vanilla. Now, I've always got mine from Sensory Perfection, and luckily I have quite a lot of it left. But obviously Sensory Perfection isn't trading anymore, which is a bit of a shame. So I obviously can't recommend that's where to get it. But a lot of places do sell black raspberry vanilla. I think Nature's Garden, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same one of this, but certainly when you look at the safety data sheets and that, the ingredients look the same, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's not the same as that. Now this black raspberry vanilla, I know a lot of people say black raspberry vanilla is a super slow moving fragrance. This one actually isn't. I would say it's not fast, but it certainly doesn't keep your batter really slow. I wouldn't use it if I wanted to do, you know, a really complicated swirl, but it is a gorgeous fragrance. And it's not super fast, as you can see. It's not going to give me any problems. Right, so this is all I need to do really for my flower pot. Just need to get this into my honey pot mould. Okay, and then I'm just going to leave that to set up overnight. Next thing I'm going to do is make some little flowers. Now I'm going to do this using some extruder discs that I sell in the shop. And these discs, these little flower discs, enable you to have petals one colour and then a different middle. Now this is a small extruder disc. This is just a 23mm one that you could fit in like a Fimo extruder, the small ones. But because I want to extrude a lot of flowers, I'm going to use them in my large extruder so I can extrude a lot using the adapter plate that I sell, which takes the small discs and allows you to use them in bigger extruder guns. So I'm just going to get that extruding. Okay, I'm just going to get them cut to just a bit longer than I actually want them, just initially while they're still soft. So just use the lid of my mould to gauge the length that I want. Okay, and then I'm just going to repeat that again for these next two colours. I've extruded all my flowers, so there's my terracotta red ones, my purple heart and my sunshine yellow. And I've also just extruded the middles, just some simple little round dots. I decided I wanted them all white. Now, all we need to do is just join these together. Now, as I've just extruded them, they're probably fine just to stick one piece inside the other. But I do like to give them a little bit of squirt with distilled water. Okay, so distilled water is really important because it's nice and clean, and obviously you're putting it into something that has already gone through saponification. So just open that flower up, drop one of the little middles, pop that in. And then we can just close those flowers up. See? Don't know how well you can see that. That'll be our cute little flower. And then we'll put these to the side. And then I'll just repeat that for all of these others. day now and my honey pot or my plant pot is all set up, so we'll just unmould it. Now these moulds that I make always unmould really beautifully. They're made in a good quality silicone. Okay, so we can just pop out our little pot there. Can you see? That's really cute. And what I want to do is I just want to show you how I would take into account putting embeds and things in my soap to then still make the soap at the right height without any excess. So the first thing I need to do with this honey pot, or plant pot, I should call it the plant pot, is I want to trim it to the right size. So I'm just going to take it, measure it across my mould, and just do a little mark where the mould comes to. So you can see I only need to take a small piece off. Cut that down as straight as possible, and then just check that it fits in. That's perfect. And then what I'll do with this is I'll weigh this, and also I really just want to weigh anything that's going to go in my soap. So remember those flowers we made yesterday? I've just left those overnight. I've already weighed those, so I know how much these all weigh. I also, if you can see, where I trimmed them to fit my mould, I just chopped all the little bits up into tiny little slices, and they're going to be really cute embeds to go on top of the soap. So I'm just going to weigh this. So I've weighed that, and that came to 446 grams. So how I would calculate, and I'm just going to do this with a big fat marker pen so you can see, I know that normally, if I just wanted to do this soap mould with just poured soap, I would have my normal soap, so my total soap, I would use 1400 grams of soap. So now I want to take away everything that I'm going to put in that. So I know I've got my plant pot, and I've just said that's 446 grams. And I also weighed out all my flowers, but overall they came to 264 grams. Now the important thing, and this is what people often do wrong, so I know if I add those two up, my total embeds are going to come to 710 grams. But what you've got to bear in mind is when I make my soap, this is 1400 grams of oil I use. This 710 grams is 710 grams of soap. So we've got to then say, okay, how do I get that back to the oils? So I times it by the amount of oils in my recipe, which is 70%, and that tells me how much oil I've used into those embeds. So I can take the oil from my embeds from the oil from my total soap. So I can see in total, to me to get my soap to the normal size that I want, I'm going to have to make up some soap with 903 grams of oil. And that will save me having any excess to pour in a surplus mould or having it too short. Often the mistake that I said people make is they often go, they weigh their embeds and then they take the embed weight away from the oil weight, and then you end up with your soap being too short because you've not compared like with like. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use for my soap. So let's just get those oils weighed out. The first layer I'm going to do is I want to have a green layer first of all, as if this plant pot is standing on some grass, then with some sky behind. So I've got two bits of oil here. One of them is going to be for some piping on the top, and the other bit is going to be for my grass. So I'm just going to weigh out my mica into those. Now I could obviously do this all in one go, but I've sort of worked out how much I want for my layer and that sort of thing, so I'm just going to do them separately. So there's my mica, and I can just blend that into my oils. I'm making them up at the same time because I obviously want my piping to set up and get a little bit thick so that it's ready pretty well when I've done the rest of the soap. And this is going to be a fairly quick soap, I hope, to make, so hopefully it won't get too thick. Right, I'm just going to get my lye solution into those. Okay, so I'm now going to get my fragrance oil in here. I'm not going to fragrance the piping. And obviously I'm using the same fragrance as yesterday. so I'm happy with that. Now, while it's nice and fluid, I'm going to get some of this poured into the mould. Most of it, actually. Okay, so I've just left a little bit in there. And then what I want to do is, I want the embed sitting on the bottom of the soap. So I am going to pop it in now so it will sink through that green colour. And just push it up a little bit further. Okay, so that should be fine. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that to set up a little bit. Now what I want to do with the rest of this, I want this to be a little bit thicker. I'm just going to warm it a little bit so it will thicken up. Okay, so I've just warmed that for like about 15 seconds. You can see it's already starting to thicken. So I'm just going to let that get a little bit thicker. And then I'm going to pop it on top of the flower bed. Sorry, the flower pot, not the flower bed, obviously. And so this is going to look sort of like, I hope, the foliage around the flowers. Okay, so let's get some of these flowers in. Okay, so I'm just doing this so I get a nice join, as it were, with the flowers on the flower pot. And don't have any gaps in the soap. Now I've got a little bit of soap splurging out the side, but that's fine. That could just look like some of the leaves coming out of the side, couldn't it? Right, let's just pop this little bit on the top. Now I'm not going to get all of the flowers in this green bit. I just wanted a little bit at the bottom, just to sort of start the moss, and then the rest I'm going to do with the heads a little bit further up. Almost, they'll look a bit like they're suspended in the air, but I still think it will look fine. I'm not going to bother making all lots of stalks for them, because that would be really very fiddly. I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is just leave that to firm up a little bit more and then start making my sky layer, my sort of background layer for that. Now I am going to split this in half and I'll explain why in a second. And I'm going to add my fragrance, or half of my fragrance, to this part straight away. And then I'm just going to wait on the other part, just 'cause I need to muck around with these embeds, and I want to make sure I've got some nice fluid soap left to go over the flowers at the end. Okay, so I've just given that one a little bit more of a blend because I do need it to be fluid, but I want it to start thickening up enough to support these embeds, so they don't just all fall to the bottom. Okay, so I want this to flow in nicely next to the pot. And then I want to start adding my flowers in. Okay, so I'm having some going down a little bit lower, as if they're trailing down the side of the pot. Okay, and then I'm just going to build up the rest. Let's just check this piping. Okay, still not particularly thick, but that's okay. I'd rather it went a bit slower than too fast. And then we can just finish off with the rest of this top colour. Okay, and this should flow into all those little gaps. You can see a little pocket there. Okay, right, so I can now just flow this in. Okay, and then because we did our calculations correctly, that's come to where we want it to in our mould. I'm pretty happy with that. A little tap down. I'm not going to bang it too hard because I don't want to dislodge those flowers. I'm now just going to pop this in my heating cupboard just to help that firm up a little bit whilst we're waiting for the piping, because I don't want the piping to get too thick while that's still really fluid. This should go quicker because this has got fragrance oil in it, but obviously this has been sitting around for a while. So I will come back when we're ready to do our piping. I think my piping's pretty close to being ready. You can see it won't, it's still sort of dropping off the spatula, but not too bad. So it may be a little bit loose, but that's okay. I can start with it. I'd rather start with it a little bit loose rather than it get too thick and not be able to pipe. Plus I'm a bit bored waiting. So I'm going to use a Wilton 352. It's a standard leaf tip. It's the one that has a little V cut out of it. Now to pipe leaves with this, you want to put it up on its end so that it looks sort of like a beak. Don't pipe with it flat like that. Pipe with it up on its end. So I'm just going to pop that into a little pot, stretch the bag over it. And then it's pop that piping in. A little bit fluid, but I think that'll be okay to start with because I'm going to have some leaves on top of the others, I think. So I don't mind if some of them aren't that great on the bottom. Okay, so I'm just squeezing, pushing down and then pulling off. Squeezing, pushing down and then releasing the pressure on the bag and then pulling off. And as I said, these are a little bit not so well defined just because this piping is a little bit fluid. And all I'm doing at the moment is I'm just going to drop some leaves on just so I can start getting these flowers on.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights.
So there we are with our top all done. Now it's a little bit high for me to get my lid on without squishing all those leaves, so I'm going to leave it without the lid on. I'm just going to pop it through to gel overnight and then we'll see what that looks like tomorrow. Here we are with our soap the next day, and that top's come out really pretty, hasn't it? Really lovely, and that green, that lime green is lovely and bright. So let's get this cut then. There's our pretty little tops. And there's our flower pot inside. Oh, that's really pretty. It's quite really sweet. And I quite like it with having the flowers with the different middles to the outsides of them. Just adds a little bit extra there. So there we are with our pretty flowers. Now, I am actually going to do something else to these. I'm just going to add a little stamp to them, only a very tiny little embellishment. So I haven't finished quite yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these for a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, and then I'm just going to do a tiny little stamp on them. So I'll come back when I'm ready to do that. We're back now a couple of days later. Let's just think, yeah, about 3 days later. So how I'm just going to finish off these soaps. Come out really cute, I do like them. Is I just want to add a stamp to them. Now I sell a whole range of little individual stamps in the shop. So obviously you can have a look at the soap stamps there. So I've just got a little tiny bee stamp here. So what I want to do is pop in my little bee. I have one there, very cute, and let's just put one there. So a couple of little bees, really cute. Now obviously the disadvantage with stamps is that design is not going to go all the way through the soap, but you can obviously do both sides. But I think one of the good things as well is, to me, as long as you've got a good base soap underneath it, it doesn't really matter. And where that can be really useful as well is if you use stamps to give some sort of seasonal edge. So let's imagine if you did a soap and you wanted to make it Christmas themed, by stamping your Christmas decorations on it, that means that those Christmassy bits would potentially wash off within, you know, several washes. And then if you've still got a soap that's still going long after Christmas, the Christmassy stamps will have gone and you'll just have a normal bar of soap. So they can be quite good if you don't want a decoration to last the full length of the soap, as it were. Okay, so those are my little bees. Now what I'm going to do with my bees, I've just got a skewer here and I kind of want to do some little trails, you know, as if to do the flight paths of the bees. So I'm just going to do some little fun trails to sort of show where the bee's been. I'm not sure how well you can see that. I think they just look really cute like that. Look at that. Not sure how well you can see the trail. I'm sort of wiggling it. Maybe you can see that. And I think they look really cute.
And I'll just leave you with a final photo of the soap. If you'd like to buy yourself a bar or two of this soap, it is available in the iDreaming soap shop now, as well as all the tools that I used to make this soap. So the honey pot mould and the extruder discs, and also lots and lots of stamps that you could use to put some cute little stamping designs on your soaps. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you like the soap. If you have, it would be great if you gave me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see what I'm making in the future, why not subscribe to my channel? Thanks for watching everyone. Happy soaping!